Hello, everybody. Welcome to our webinar today, a case study in district-led suicide prevention with Marianne Oborn from the Tooele County School District in Utah. I'm Christina Opalka, and I'm here to represent Committee for Children, the organization that creates the Second Step Social Emotional Learning Program. If you don't already know, Second Step is a universal classroom-based curriculum. Lessons are designed to teach children social emotional learning competencies. So, for example, understanding and managing their emotions, controlling their reactions, being aware of others' feelings, problem solving, and making good decisions. It is a research and evidence-based program that is widely used in classrooms across the country and worldwide, including 70 countries and about 30% of U.S. elementary schools. I'll jump back in at the end of this webinar with more information for you to take away about CFC and Second Step. But first, I wanted to share just a bit about what brings us here today. One of the things I do in my role is collect stories. That means I spend time with educators, getting to know them and learning about their implementations of Second Step. One of those opportunities came up last October, and I traveled to Tooele City to meet Marianne and her team. I was so impressed. I remember thinking, this is an incredible example of the power of social emotional learning to help kids thrive and build a more positive school culture. What really stood out was the community buy-in. Everyone was working together, and the more I learned how Second Step combined with other efforts and programs to measurably move the needle positively on suicide prevention, the more I was convinced we needed to create a platform to get this suicide prevention case study out there. I hope this presentation will inform and motivate you in your move towards suicide prevention. And I hope you're coming with your pencils out, because Marianne Oborn is one of the most informed people you could hope to meet when it comes to mobilizing schools, a district, and a community to address rising suicides. I'm so pleased to introduce our speaker for this special presentation, Marianne Oborn. Marianne, please tell us about yourself.
Hi, thank you. I'm Marianne Oborn, and just a little bit about me. I have a 25-year background in education with the last 17 years in Tooele County School District. I have a master's degree in counseling and in educational administration with a bachelor's in business education. It had been my passion to work with students and our staff to promote a positive school climate and suicide prevention, especially with some of the tragedies that we've gone through. And it's a constant effort and work, but also just something that is enticing and involvement in our community to work with the resources that we have and with everybody within our community to counter the many issues of suicide that we've had. So with that, we have a video, Christina, that you were going to show.
Yeah, so we do have a video to get us started, and that should give us a bit of an introduction to Tooele County School District and this important story. So here we go.
Good morning, Copper Canyon Coyotes, and welcome to school on this Wednesday morning. Our second step skill for this week is using self-talk.
We are a rural district, and we cover one of the largest geographic areas in the state of Utah. We have great parents, and we have great students. We had multiple tragedies. We had 7 suicides. We had a murder. Every week, I was just dreading a phone call because there was something next. When you lose a kid, it's like you lose one of your own. It's heartbreaking.
As a mom and as a citizen, I really had to come face to face with this issue of suicidality and this question of what's causing this, what is going on here.
It's more than just, let's go out and get a program. We felt like we really needed to address not just suicide, because it's pretty complicated. How can we remove the stigma and the, taboo nature of depression and anxiety and suicide? How are we going to make a difference in the lives of kids and families and do it for all 16,000 kids? If you've ever had a student who lost their life, you say to yourself, not one more, not even one. This is preventable.
Thank you for watching the video. As you can see, we do understand tragedy, and we hope to be able to share with you what we have learned, but we are all affected. And as you probably know today, we're all touched by rising rates of suicide. So let's look at some of the national rates. We have 7.4% of our students have attempted suicide in 2017. Each day in the US, there is an average of 3,041 suicide attempts by our youth. When I look at that number, that would be like 2 of our schools that would be just gone. According to the Center of Disease Control, suicide is the second leading cause of death for ages 10 to 24. So these are really hard numbers.
Marianne, what are the statistics for Utah?
In Utah actually is the 5th highest suicide rate in the nation. So it is something that is near and dear to all of us. And Tooele County, where I am at, has been at the very highest in our state. But as we have been working with this, we actually are the only county that has shown a decrease in suicide and we'll show you some of those statistics later on as we go on through the video. So there's a lot of research on this, and we do understand it, so I'm hoping that this can help you. So as we look towards that, we want to have that research base behind what we do, and we're trying to figure out what happens. We automatically go to the experts. So a couple of the experts that I thought had some really good things to say were Dr. Gregory Plemons, where he talked about the access to mental health care. And as we look at suicide and we look at the other tragedies that happen, it all ties back to mental health and depression and anxiety and other various areas of mental health. So that was one area. Dr. Melissa Mercado, as she talked about the need for the implementation of evidence-based comprehensive suicide and self-harm prevention strategies, that it has to be evidence-based. You have to be careful about what you choose so that you don't do more harm, but that it has the practice and the research behind it. And I really loved our own Dr. Scott Rogers. He has a doctorate in psychology, so we're so lucky with that. But he talked about how we need a balanced approach. So you're not just looking at the social emotional learning, but you're looking at the academics and you're bringing it all together in order to support the students. So as you're looking at this, and the experts say, and if you've gone through a year of tragedy or you're dealing with that at this time, I feel bad for you, but some of the things you may be asking questions about are, how do you get the funding? How do you get community and teacher buy-in? What does the structure look like? How do you keep the mission strong over time? And as our superintendent expressed, how do you do that balanced approach? And what does it look like as you're balancing school climate and academics and the needs of your students? So in this presentation, that is what we're going to try and cover for you and help you so you can put your own plan in place and hopefully pull some ideas from what we have learned. So this is what we will be covering today. So we'll give you some background about our district because we know every district is different, and so you can know the scalability there. And we'll talk about what our turning point was and what really made us put a major emphasis in this area. We'll talk about our roadmap, the 6 areas of action that we really have focused in on, and what the big 5 essential preconditions to success in order to implement that. And then we'll also go into some details on the implementation strategies and the outcomes and benefits that we were able to gain from those strategies. And then we'll spend a little bit of time on second step and how it has benefited us and as we put that in place. So before I get into the discussion about our school district and everything, we're going to have a poll so we can have an idea of who is in the audience. So if you could take a minute and fill out the poll, and then while you're doing that, I'll tell you just a little bit about our district. So we're a large district, 7,000 square miles, so very big. We're a commuter community, so about 50% of our population commutes into Salt Lake to work, so it's 30 to 45 minutes away. We have 2 to 3 schools that are, 3 schools that are 2 hours away from us. And we have schools that range from 25 students to 1,900 students. We have schools that have a 90% minority population down to almost 100% English speaking. We are the 7th fastest growing county in the US. So you can see we have a huge amount of diversity in our district. We have schools on military bases. We have the school on the Indian reservation for our Native American students. So we have a lot of diversity in our needs as we were trying to figure out what to do to put in place for that.
So it looks like our audience is made up of 38% district leaders or district level staff members, and 42% school principals, teachers, or staff, 4% members of a community organization, and 13% other. So thanks for doing that.
So our turning point was in the 2014-15 school year. Our last data before that was the 2013 data. And if you look at this data here, it was an extremely hard year for us. Our data showed that our bullying had increased 9%. We had more school students that were missing school because they felt unsafe. That year we had, this says 5 student suicides, we had 7 suicides. We had a murder of a student on a student. We had a double van car injury where it killed one of the parents. We had severe injuries on students that we're dealing with. We had a carbon monoxide death between a student and a parent. We had multiple adult suicides, and we had multiple unexplained deaths by our parents. So it was one of those years, if any of you have ever gone through it, your anxiety is just off the charts, because anytime your phone rings or that text buzzes, you're just wondering what next. And it was, by the end of that school year, we were at that point where we will do anything in our power that we could possibly do to never, ever have to go through something like that again. And so my heart goes out to any of you that have ever gone through anything like this. But as you can see on our data, it wasn't great. We had a 14.1% had seriously considered suicide within the past year. So our data wasn't good. So the road ahead with that, our district was small at that time. There was the 2 of us, myself and the assistant superintendent, that were responding to all of these crises. We are in Utah, which is a lower funded state, and our district actually was towards the very bottom on funding. And we knew we needed to get plan and structure to get in place of how to do this, and we needed to figure that out. But we knew that within that plan, it had to have something that had access to that mental health care like we spoke about, and it had to have the evidence-based programs. It had to have something that improved school climate and prevent those self-destructive behaviors like cutting that we see in students. And we needed that balanced approach so that it was supporting all the elements of education. And we knew that we needed to review our crisis program and totally go through that. So with that, we're going to look over 6 areas, and this is our roadmap areas to look at. So with that, we're going to start. This will cover a lot of stuff. So number 1, our foundational behavioral framework, we chose PBIS, or the Positive Behavioral Interventions and Support. And we partnered that with the MTSS, which is the multi-tiered systems of support. And we did that because it's a framework. It's not a program, but it puts in place the framework needed to say what programs we could actually use. So with the PBIS framework came the TFI assessment, which is a tiered fidelity inventory. And so we used that. We had PBIS in like 7 of our elementary schools, so we knew some about it and had seen some success with it. But we're like, we need this district-wide. We need it more than just in a handful of schools. And so we went after that really hard because we knew that we needed to improve student behavior. We knew we needed to improve, needed to have those targeted interventions for students and a way to collect the data that we needed. And then, along with that foundation, in order to get the vocabulary that we needed, because that was one of the things we really found is people were talking, but they weren't talking the same language. And so that's where second step came into play, is because it allowed us to do a common vocabulary across our entire district. And we really liked how it had also a data element that we could use for assessing where were we at in each school and what were the needs, and that tied back into academics and how the social emotional learning could help academics. And so we went after that, and it wasn't going to be just in one class or one teacher teaching it. We were going after it school-wide, so it was going to be teacher-driven and counselor-supported. It wasn't going to be just individual, and that was a big change in order to do that, and took a lot of support to get that way. So, and Christina will give you a little bit more information on second step later on, but it's been fantastic. The second thing we put in place was mental health services. This was for us a must. We knew that mental health was tied directly into what was happening. So we went after looking for funding so we could help support limited visits for our students to be able to get these mental health services. So we came up with some federal grant funds to help pay for six visits for our students that would offset their costs. This was huge. And then also there was no way just the two of us could keep doing this. We needed support and additional help. And so we were able to hire 2 safe school coordinators. So one that did elementary, one secondary, so we could get people out. And then we couldn't just look at our district, we needed to look at our community. And so that's where our county-wide suicide prevention came in, where you can see the suicide, the QPR that's on there, that's question, persuade, refer. That we did not do that just in schools, we did that county-wide, and it was a partnership between our mental health agency, the police department, our girls and boys clubs, those. We pulled in Hope Squads into our secondary schools, which is a peer-to-peer suicide prevention program. The Safe UT app we worked with our legislator, and they put that together, and it's an anonymous app that our students can put in for whether it's bullying, suicide, weapons. They even added a kindness link to it, which I love, but so that we could get quick access from students and open that communication to an additional area that really helped us. And then data. I don't know how to, that you've got to be data driven. Look at what you have and maybe look at what gaps that are there that you need more data on. We had the state SHARP survey that goes back to 1998 that we used. So we had data, and we're going to share a little bit of that with you. The tiered fidelity inventory, like we said, we were doing it in a few schools, but we needed it district-wide. And I love that inventory because it does an environmental survey as well as interviews with teachers and staff and students. So it's fantastic. We also took on Educator's Handbook. We purchased that so that we could know what the majors and minors were happening in our schools, and the student information system. Funding is huge. We knew that we had to have money to do this. We didn't have the money. I'm not a professional grant writer, and so going after that, I had just finished writing an elementary grant and received that the year as we were going into our year of tragedy. So I had a little bit, but it was getting out and talking to people and asking questions and finding out more and being willing to say, you give me the grant, I'll write it, and working on it. So state grants, local foundations, talking with your school board, is there any additional funding there that they can help you, support you with? And then community engagement. And community engagement, I would not say is last. That is involved in all of this because they can help with the data. They can help with the funding. The data, you let them use and have access to it too, so they can go after grants also. We had our Parents as Partners is one of the things that I have loved that we've started, where we have partnership community events. So we had ANCS, which is an anxiety. We've done things on pornography. We've done things on cyberbullying, anything that our parents could see, but working with the community and working with it at a level that they know that you are real partners. So I know that that's a lot. We did not do all of that at one time. So I don't want you to totally get overwhelmed by all of that. So to kind of give you an idea on the staging of it and more of a timeline, so 2013 is when we got our elementary grant, and we were able, and before that, I envy those states that have elementary counselors in all of their schools. We don't. But in 2013, we were able to obtain a federal grant and put counselors into 7 of our 16 elementary schools that we had at that time. and they were part-time, we were elated to have that, but we saw that we needed more. And then we put the mental health treatment partnerships. So we put that in place and our second step implementation into our 7 schools. And one of the fun things with the second step was we got it in place in the 7 schools, and the other schools were like, well, we want that. So it was pretty cool. And so in 2014-15, in our year of tragedy, we started rolling out the QPR, question, persuade, refer, and we hit that hard. So we did staff trainings with our staff. We did trainings with students. We did trainings with churches, with Boy Scouts, putting that out. In October 2014, we received the school climate grant, which when you have a year like that, it also gives you data to be going after some of these tougher grants. And then with that, we were allowed to hire our 2 school climate coordinators in November 2014. So we went and about another year before we were able to hire them. And then we were able to put educators, and then with that grant, we were able to put the educators handbook district-wide, put second step district-wide, and then in December of 2014, as we had put the second step in, we had to take a couple steps backwards and say, oh, wait a minute, we need to involve our community in this. And so that's when we talked with our police department, our communities that care. So they're like, well, we want to be part of this. And so we involved them in the teaching in the schools with that. And then in 2015, we rolled out our Safe UT app. So that was the app on the phone, so that we had that next level of support. And then this 2 summers ago, we did our crisis manual updates. So we went from 200 pages down to about 64 pages on that. But it's continual every year, retraining, putting any additional supports in place that we can, and being open to our administration on what supports that they need. So we're really looking at that. But our major focus right now, so we're 4 years later, is the crisis area in additional areas like active shooter training and stuff like that.
So Marianne, if you don't mind me asking a question, but you were telling me before that anybody can put these programs together according to their situation. So this happened to be the phases that you put your programs into place in, but that it's going to vary depending on the unique situation. So I was just curious to know if you were to do it again, would this be the order you would take in implementing these different phases?
I think, for us, I would have to say that a little bit of luck was luck, but I think a lot of it was because we had that strong framework in place to begin with the PBIS, that it helped us have that direction of what to do and putting things in place. And then also our superintendent with having a doctorate in psychology, I was able to get that additional support to go into things. So that was huge in putting it together. But I would put it in the same order as what we did before. It worked very well. It worked very cleanly. Things transitioned very well with it. So as we look at that, what were the essential steps with that in order to, with those 6 things, what did you have to have in place? So number 1 is leadership. If you don't have the leadership in place, you're going to have a hard time getting your buy-in. And as I've talked with different people and looked at it, not everybody has a superintendent with a background in psychology, so that was lucky for us. But there's a lot of research out there, and if you use your data, that's all it takes to really show them what's needed and how it can help. Also, your school board. School board's huge, and if you've gone through a year of tragedy like we did, they're there and they want to be able to help with that. And so again, using that research, using that knowledge, using the data. And then your principals. That was probably the tougher part for us, was that administrator buy-in, because there was areas as like when I'm saying, okay, we want you all to do second step and we want it teacher driven, not counselor driven. And they're like, well, why can't our counselors teach it? And we're like, because then you don't have the common vocabulary across the school. Well, but it's much easier. They're already there. They have the background in it. This isn't what our teachers are trained in. So talking to them about how to do that and showing them the data and basically saying, please trust me and try it. And if we need to change it, we will. And then the funding, that most everything costs money. Looking for the grants, looking for local private grants, looking at your educational foundations. I know that Christina had some stuff on this too that she mentioned.
I do. I just wanted to jump in and say that there is a page on our secondstep.org site that has a lot of really, really good ideas about funding and traces different funding sources to people. So that's just an area where people can go to get some good ideas. And we'll have that website appear a little bit later at the end of the presentation. So thanks for that, Marianne.
Yeah. And you need to have a structure in place. For us, it was the PBIS and the second step were the two main structures that we used for that. But one caution I do need to give is that if you have ever gone through a year like we have, you're going to have a lot of different agencies and people that just kind of come out here. We're here to help you. Here, use our stuff. By having a structure in place, then it enabled us a way to be able to politely decline those programs and assemblies and different things that did not meet our framework and structure. We would still say we would love your help in these areas, but we're only utilizing search-based programs. And then community. And when I talk to community, that one, I knew the people before, I knew who they were, but I didn't know them. And that was a critical element that I hadn't realized how deeply we needed it. So now our police chiefs, they're on my cell phone. Our mental health agencies, they're on my cell phone. They know they can call me at any time, and they know I will call them at any time if there's something needed. So I'm having that deeper relationship, so it's more than just an associate. They actually become a friend. And then your data. You've got to use your data and use the right data, so that it's sometimes data can be totally overwhelming, but narrowing it down so you're using the data that you need on that. So some of the intentional strategies that we looked at second step because it had the social emotional components that we were looking for. And you need to pick a program that fits you. We had looked at several different ones. We picked second step because it had, I loved how it was all scripted for our teachers. So there was some key things that I was looking for as I was looking. Number one, it had to be research-based. That was a given. It had to have a K. We were looking for K-12. They had K-8, and I couldn't find a good K-12 one. But it had to be sequential in the grade levels so that there was a different curriculum per grade level. So I wanted that learning continuously so that it met the grade-specific criteria. And then I wanted something that was scripted. I did not want an additional prep for our teachers because our teachers are already overwhelmed. Funding was a little bit tricky when we got into it. I'm trying to figure out to do that. But looking at this and saying this is what fit all of the criteria that we needed, then it was going out and finding the funding, because saying that, this is what we needed. I didn't want to settle for something that kind of fit ours criteria when there was something that really fit it well. And then, the superintendent support going into that was a must, and showing the data to him and saying, this is what we need. Can you help back me as I'm going after different grants on that? And one of the biggest things on the strategies that we have in place that I absolutely love is celebrating the successes. I love this. At the end of every month, we do a certificate for the PBIS second step teacher or actually staff member of the month in each school. So it could be a custodian, it could be a food worker, it could be a teacher, a support staff. It doesn't matter. So we get them from all over, but so that we are sending that message about relationships, about PBIS, about second step, that social emotional learning, that we're sending that district wide. And so that one's critical. Some of the unintentional benefits that we were able to see as we worked through this, it was really cool. As I told you a little bit earlier, we first put second step just in the 7 schools, and we were getting some really good feedback from it, and the other schools were, where's ours? We want it too. And so with that, and as the school started seeing that we were trying really hard to give them additional supports in this area, it really increased our positive communication between the district and the schools. And our mental health services went up. I mean, every year our demand for that went up. The community are working with the Question, Persuade, Refer. It opened additional doors between us and other agencies, with the police department, with the Valley Mental Health, with our hospitals and different things. And it, so it just made all of our partnerships much, much stronger. And one of the things that we were so excited about was, as our school board, they go through and set new goals every year. And for the last several years, they've added the number 2 goal is excellence in school climate. To me, that is so cool to be able to have that as one of our school goals. And then we were able to, with our grant, have trained all of an administrator in every one of our schools in PBIS, so they know what it looks like. And that, so you're probably wondering about some of our data. We went from 20 suicide deaths in 2014, and we went from that down to 9 in 2016.
So Marianne, I just wanted to ask, did those numbers go in the other direction for other counties in Utah?
Yes, they did. Our county was the only one that has seen a reduction in suicide deaths, which for us is exciting. I feel bad the other counties haven't had the same success that we have, but it has been really exciting for us that we have actually had that reduction in the suicide deaths. The hard part with the data here is it all looks really rosy and it looks really great, but what you need to realize here is that with data, when you start doing the data and you start having the conversations, your data is actually going to start looking worse. So the thing that doesn't show on the screen here is that our bullying numbers actually increased. So in 2013, we were at 23.4%. In 2015, so that's our year, it went up to 25%. And then we started coming down in 2017. It went down to 23.2%. And our students considering suicide, we were at 14.1% in 2013. We went up to 17% in 2015. And then we started going down again. The considering suicide actually went up to 17.3 in 2017. But when you look at the deaths, we want the communication. So you've got to look at, what is that survey actually asking? And so is it communicating what bullying looks like? Is it communicating what suicidality looks like? Is it communicating what depression looks like? So that you look at that, so that you don't get scared of the numbers, and you really need to make it safe to be able to talk about the numbers, and you're not penalizing schools for reporting accurately their majors and minors. And then also, it takes actually about 5 years to be able to get that correct vocabulary about what is bullying, what does it look like, what is a office referral, and what isn't an office referral, what should be handled in the classroom, and what is a weapons violation, and the different things that way, working at that. So the numbers, we're so excited that now you can see we are really having some positive data, but the behind the scenes data, you'll also see if you dug deeper, you would see other data that would be higher, showing that the communication has increased. And this also will show some of that. So here we have, if you look at the blue line, you can see a slight decrease from 2013 in both our alcohol, tobacco, and marijuana use. As you get down on your percentages, it slows on your decrease, but we were so excited because you can see before then it was kind of some ups and downs. So the big thing here I want to look at is that whatever you put in place for suicide prevention, tobacco prevention, with your social emotional learning, it helps in all of the areas. And one of my school coordinators, she has this saying that I absolutely love, and it's prevention is prevention is prevention. Whatever you put in place, it works in all of the areas. So we have another video. We're going to transition and show you some of my coworkers and what we've done.
I do believe that any time that you start at a younger age and you get those emotions under control and they understand how they're feeling and why they're feeling that way, that it does help with the negative thoughts that our children have every day.
Research shows that when kids are bonded to their teachers and to their schools, that their risk for problem behavior actually goes down.
We've been talking about empathy and all those ways to identify it.
When we're creating these bonds, when we're creating this positive interaction, we're giving these kids tools that they can use for the rest of their lives to stand up to pressure, to avoid roadblocks that may come up for them. That's what we're doing. We're protecting these kids. We're helping them in their future.
Now, tell me this, have you thought about their viewpoint?
As soon as we started implementing it, we're like, oh, this is what we want. We want kids to have these skills. Right? And now that we have it, it's like, no, don't take it away from us.
It's helped them hopefully feel safe at school and feel like they have a common language across the board that they can communicate with their teachers and other adults in the schools and even fellow students to help them, deal with their emotions.
It does help me sleep better, even if you will, knowing that we're making every possible effort we can and that we have very invested teachers and students, and we're coming together as a whole community to address this problem.
As we've been able to work together as a community on these prevention efforts, it allows us to act in a proactive way instead of reacting with fear. To any community that's gone through a big trauma, work together, listen together, be brave enough to look at the data in your community, come together in a common language, and then rely on prevention science so that you can work the most effectively.
Okay, everyone join with me in our howls.
Don't just go in with a fixed mindset looking at how can we fix this problem. We've got a bullying problem, here's the fix. It's more of a growth mindset, which is how can we grow and change to understand that there's not a one-size-fits-all, there's not one program that does everything.
I own my actions, thoughts, and feelings. I work together and compromise.
For us, it was a combination of good people, research-based programs, best practices coming together, and then you come together once and you come together again and you refine it. It's so important to teach positive behaviors, to focus on wellness and on replacement behaviors, than just focus on the problems.
I stand up for myself and others.
Because great habits make great leaders. Have a great day.
As you can see, we have an amazing team. It isn't just school district people. Our team is our community. So thank you for watching that video. And with that, we'd like to show you some of our lessons that we have learned. So one of the biggest lessons we've learned is let the data tell a story. Sometimes it's kind of scary and sometimes it's not super great. But as you implement new strategies, let them know that it's safe, that it's going to look a little bit worse before it looks better, and that you're going to look deeper into it, and monitor your community climate with that data also. So it's not just your school district, but it's the whole community. And know that the job is never done. That reteaching, that retraining is ongoing, and sometimes you'll get a little bit of resistance in that. But if you think about your turnover and new people, and people forget if things get put on the shelf. Communication, that's an area where I failed to begin with. Before and during our year of strategy, I just thought people would see everything that we were doing. And we didn't communicate it. We didn't do the social media the way we needed to. We didn't let everybody know what we were doing. And it was heartbreaking to say, we are working so hard. And they're like, really? We're not seeing it. So you need to get out there and communicate what you're actually doing. Keep building on what's working and keep learning. So researching, I subscribe to several different resources that I'm, daily looking at new things. What are new ways that we can improve and learn and do that? Especially, I'm doing ongoing mental health training with our counselors. And then I always put it out there if there's other departments that would join in, that they're included. Give the teachers what they need, so that they can do what they need to in the classroom and they're feeling supported. And then sustainability, that's probably one of the hardest ones. is that sustainability, because if you're using grant money and figuring out now how do I keep this going, but that's a critical thing to always keep in mind whenever you're using grants or legislative funds, but that communication and that data will help you towards that. And so if you focus on these major tools, I think you will have what you need to be successful in your own district. And so with that, to me, this slide is it's an intimidating slide. You can see our governor, Gary Herbert, here. He came to visit our district this last summer, and I was asked to speak, which is extremely scary because I had him there and I had 2 of our legislators there. But it was so exciting because he is supportive of education, and we had been giving data to our legislators, and they actually passed this last year House Bill 264, which funded elementary counselor grant that we could apply for. And we actually received funding to help support 5 of our counselors. So way, way exciting for us. And then with that, our superintendent came up with the funds so that we now have an elementary counselor in every one of our schools. So we have really come a long way. And, we've had some really good wins between our superintendent support and our legislators' support. But one of the things I have really learned through the process here is that communication with the legislators is just as important. Share with them your data. They really do care. They really do want to help, but they need the resources and the data to back up what they're trying to do. And so helping them and supporting them is a really big thing there. So I really hope that this was helpful for you. If you've ever gone through this, it's really, really hard. I feel for you. It's very near and dear to my heart. And if there's something that we can do to help you with that, if you're going through that, you are more than welcome to reach out to us. And on the Tooele County School District, you can Google us. And with that, Christina, I'll go ahead and pass the time back over to you.
Yeah, and I'll just remind the group that we'll have Q&A in a bit, so we will have an opportunity to ask Marianne some questions. I just want to say that is such an interesting and positive way to finish up your talk, Marianne. And you were telling me about how some of those legislators actually have your number on their phone and you have them on your phone. I mean, that's extraordinary, and that kind of trust really took time. And this presentation has been really awesome to watch because you can really see all the pieces that have come together over the years. So I wanted to just go a little bit into the story of Second Step. And before I do, I'll mention that we have live webinars that go into more depth about our programs, and you can register for those on our website, along with a wealth of other resources you can look into if you like. So Committee for Children is a nonprofit organization. It was formed in 1979. It advocates for, researches, and develops educational programs to advance the safety and well-being of children through social emotional learning. And that's our mission. With 40 years working towards this goal, our reach has built over time to an estimated 14 million children each year in 70 countries. The Second Step program is at its foundation a social emotional learning curriculum, but it's more than just a curriculum. It encompasses lessons for students, professional development for staff, and family communications. It's a program that gives educators everything they need to bring research-based strategies to their classrooms to help children become more competent with important life skills, like managing their emotions, forming healthy relationships, making decisions, and coping with everyday stresses and challenges. So the curriculum is available for early learning, elementary and middle school grades. And in elementary grades, there are additional bullying prevention and child protection units that can be taught along with the SEL curriculum. And again, for more specific information, just go to our secondstep.org site or Committee for Children, actually cfchildren.org. But connecting back to the topic of this presentation, Marianne called out a few principal reasons her district chose Second Step, so I wanted to expand a little bit on those. First, Marianne talked about how important it is to choose evidence-based programs. Committee for Children is part of the research community, and Second Step is evidence and research-based. So I invite you to go to the research page of the Second Step site to dig into its extensive review of the program's research underpinnings, as well as randomized controlled trials and studies that have shown measurable positive outcomes for students. It's a great resource for those who are looking for a strong research-based program. Marianne also talked about how teachers really respond to the program's ease of use. So for example, it's designed so the required prep time is minimal. Lessons can be taught with scripted lesson cards. She mentioned that as well. Ease of use is a defining quality of the Second Step program. For teachers, it's about giving them tools they can embrace. For schools and districts and even communities, ease of use is fundamental to being able to scale the program and create supports that work for them to ensure fidelity. Marianne also mentioned that the program provides a common language. Just to expand on that, Second Step teaches language and tools from perspective taking to calming down techniques that everyone can use on the playground, in the classroom, from school to school, and at home. So think about what happens when we all use the same words for emotions, words for interpersonal dynamics, strategies to solve problems. It can promote empathy and understanding between students, teachers, staff, parents, even a whole community. A shared social and emotional vocabulary can create lasting systemic change. So I'll finish with that thought, because lasting systemic change is what Tooele decided it was going for. And I would like to compliment Marianne and the whole team at Tooele County School District for everything they have accomplished. We are so proud to be a part of your story, Marianne. So let's open up things for questions with Marianne. So one of the questions we came in was, this one goes back to one of the outcomes you were talking about. So how do you determine the staff member of the month for PBIS and Second Step? You were talking about the positive reinforcement. Can you give us a little bit more information about how you select the people who get those?
So we let our principals decide that in each of their schools. So they have the guidelines for the Second Step and PBIS in place and so they look at what are the supports that, what are they doing to support that positive school climate in the schools. So it could be a variety of things they could look at, like a custodian going out of his way to talk to the kids on a regular basis, or different things like that, reinforcing vocabulary that's happening, things like that. So we leave it up to the administrators, and it's been pretty cool, especially for our staff that normally don't get recognition.
Thank you so much, Marianne. This is a good one. How has your district stayed on course as building leadership and other key staff have probably turned over throughout the past few years?
Yeah, two of the people that were in the video actually got recruited away to the state level from us. And it is hard, but we knew that would happen. So as new people have been brought on, like this past summer, we had a conference during the summer. So I invited everybody over to my trailer. I did a full barbecue for them and said, okay, here's where we're at. You're the new people on board. This is where we're at. And this is how we expect to have everybody communicating and working with each other and having those open conversations. And so right then I'm collecting cell phone numbers from them. I'm giving them my cell phone and bringing it out so that they were comfortable with it. But you have to go out of your way to do it and get out of your comfort zone, because it can be a little bit intimidating to talk to someone who's basically a stranger to begin with, to say, this is where we're at and we need you to join the team.
Oh, okay, thank you so much. I have one other good one. Has momentum waned? If so, how do you plan to address this? And if not, what do you credit the sustained energy to?
Say that our momentum has actually increased. It has not slowed down. It's actually increased. I think that the reason why is the continual communication with our leadership, school board, superintendent, principals. We are consistently talking with all of them, asking for their buy-in, respecting their buy-in, and asking needs and how can we improve. And if they say something's not working super great, then we have that open conversation about how can we do it differently. And so we don't just throw it out. We try and learn from our mistakes and improve. So I think that open communication at that level, and also with the social media and some other ways doing it that way, have really helped. So it actually has increased.
Thanks, Marianne. I just wanted to say that we got a comment that came in that says you're such an inspiring character. And I think you are an inspiring character as well. And I just want to tell the group that I was telling Marianne, maybe you shouldn't put your email up, because people will get in touch with you and you might be overwhelmed, and she insisted that we put this slide up with her information. And one of the things that she said to me when we were going through this was how much she wished she had this kind of like another district that had gone through what she was going through, because she felt so without resources and could have really used that guidance and just the story of somebody else having gone through it alone with that emotional piece, but then also having those really tangible examples of things that you can do to take steps forward. So I just want to say thank you so much, Marianne, for your participation and putting all of this information together and sharing it out. It's been great.
Thank you. We appreciate you joining with us, and hopefully this has been a benefit for you and that you can take something back to use in your own district.